You have to give them enough space, right? Enough wiggle room to struggle, because that's learning comes on the other side of that. What you're talking about, this interesting case where I'm the coach and I don't necessarily know the right thing to do, and the learner doesn't know the right thing to do. I don't really understand how this is going to get to where we're going to go, but I'm going to trust the process.
Today, I am excited to welcome Chad Bareither back to the show. Now, Chad was on in episode 498, and so we'll link to that one in the show notes. But today, we had a great conversation. I really like this podcast. We just really dive deep into the whole idea of lean transformations. And we start at the beginning, like I sort of challenge them almost. I'm like, what is a lean transformation? And we talked a little bit about, the so-called surveys out there who say X% of lean transformations fail and all that. And Chad sort of debunks that a little bit, and you'll hear what he says. I thought he had a really good response to that. And so we really just get into the nuts and bolts of why lean can be difficult, and what we as practitioners and what we as leaders can and should be doing to make this thing work. And it's just a lot of really deep conversations. We always have a few questions kind of like ready to sort of get the conversation going, but this is one where the questions were just flying out of my mouth because I was just genuinely curious. And as you'll hear, Chad is he's super smart. He's really humble, but he's super wise. You can just feel the wisdom when he speaks, and that's what I really enjoy about him. So show notes can be found over at gembapodcast.com. Look for episode 556. Also, just scroll down on whatever app you're listening to this on, and please go and connect with Chad. Go check out his book, Improve Last Week. We talked a little bit about that. That's what episode 498 was, where we talked about his book. But good guy, super smart guy, and he's also kind of in the consulting world. So if there's anything he can do to help you with that, go check that out as well. Okay, enough from me. Let's get to the show. Chad, welcome back to the show. How's it going?
It's going great. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, I just peeked before we jumped on, and you were last on in episode 498, the power of improving less, and we were talking about your book back then. So it's been a little while since we last chatted. So, but thanks for coming back on. And if you remember, we like to get things going out of the gate with our guests sharing a quote. So, what do you got?
Yeah, so I don't know that it's my favorite quote, but right now one that's really sticking with me is prediction is hard, especially if it's about the future. And it's credited to both Niels Bohr and Yogi Berra. So I guess you can take your pick of who you feel like a bigger influencer. I go with the Danish physicist Niels Bohr.
Okay, what's that mean to you though?
So it's interesting. This became really insightful to me over the last month, really. I was recently at a conference, the Lean Solutions Summit, which Patrick Adams' organization puts on. And Thilo Swartz was joining a panel discussion there. And he was just commenting on the fact of like, we have this, in my words, not his, I'll paraphrase, like this epidemic of certainty, right? We've given up being uncertain. And I think that's impeded us a little bit in terms of our experimental mindset. And I think that the tie back into lean there is very important, because we want to be so certain, so confident about everything, but we can't be certain. This threshold of knowledge exists where if we're not willing to be uncertain and to be humble and to learn, like it's really hard to be very certain about what the future is going to hold if we've never tried it a different way.
Yeah. I have this theory that there's just in the human, just that because we're human, that there's this aspect, it's more almost psychological, really, this need for certainty, right? Like this need for sort of knowing, like that, like think back to the pandemic. That's why it was so difficult, is because you just had no idea what was going to happen, right? And just that, and uncertainty I've seen it wreck some people more than others. There's certain people that I've worked with over the years, and if they didn't have a clear line of sight of how things were going to go, it just really wrecked them. Yeah. While others were just, okay, well, let's go for it. And it's easy to to read the book and say, yeah, experiment your way forward. And, yeah, that's nice to say on a stage and nice to write in a book. But, when you really do it, when your kid is sick or you're going because they've got cancer or something like that, it's real easy to say, oh, yeah, let's just roll with it, but gosh, there's this, I don't know, man, there's a deep yearning to know. And I don't know. That's why I think it's so hard. It's real easy to be critical of, oh, yeah, well, we should be this or that. Yeah, but we're human.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's especially if you look at, so there's definitely a human condition where there's safety. You can look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And I need to feel a little bit more secure, and I can't be as secure about an uncertain future. There's also, as we've gotten into this age of information, it used to be if you were sitting around at a bar and asked a question and someone didn't know the answer, like you'd talk about it. But now it's like, I'll look it
Hold
up.
on.
So,
yeah.
So we have two things. We have like immediate access to information, but you have very polarized information as well.
Yeah.
So not to get like too off into the tangents here of like being political about it, but you can pretty much find evidence to support your need pretty quickly. So like we gravitate, I agree with you. We gravitate towards certainty, and that's what makes prediction hard is we want to be very confident about what we're going to do. So we go into it, and then mentally, I think we start to like filter. We have this paradigm effect where we filter out information that's not confirming that that more certain future that we have. And that becomes a challenge, so if I take that long loop around back into like lean and cultural change, it's hard then to say for an organization, I want you to experiment. I want you to be uncertain. I want you to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I got to ship that product on Friday or we're in trouble, Right. And that's the other reality of, where sort of academia meets reality, right? Like it's all well and good, Gemba Academy, that you say that in your video, but hey, man, we got to get the work done today. Yeah. So anyhow, yeah, good stuff. Well, hey, we jumped in, got all deep right out of the gate, and people, if they didn't hear 498, don't even know who you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Chad. Tell us about your background and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, so my name's Chad Bareither. I help company leaders to solve problems that'll help boost their productivity. And that helps us get products to market faster, products to customers faster, and improve profit. Lately, I've really been enjoying the work and focusing more on the med tech, so med device and pharmaceutical industries. Okay. Growing industries, lots of unique challenges there. But I partner with organizations to come in and help solve those problems, build the capabilities, a little bit of what we'll talk about today. Rather than just like fly in, train, fly out.
Got it. Okay. Well, what I want to do is to start maybe the general theme is just sort of like the role of culture and lean and, how can we be successful as organizations and really individuals? So maybe to start with, talk a little bit about your thoughts on culture as it relates to being successful with whatever that means. When we say we have a successful lean transformation, sometimes I don't even know what is that. Yeah. What is a success? Maybe let's start there. Like, what is a successful lean transformation before you even worry about culture? Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we're hitting some pretty like high level questions here to start off with, right? Certainty and what does transformation mean?
Easy, come on.
Yeah. No, it's fun to talk about this. So why a transformation? So a transformation, let's just simplify that and call it a change. So we're going to make a change. We're going to change the way we manage the business, change the way maybe we manage the production line, whatever you want to say. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the first question that I ask is why? Why would we want to change? So part of what a transformation should be able to answer, is it going to get us closer to whatever our goal is, whatever our purpose is, whatever our mission? So that's, for example, organizations that I might work with might be struggling with on-time delivery because they're growing. They might be struggling with cost pressures with in industry shift, right? Or the market has shifted, so they've lost market share, something like that. So part of the transformation does have to your earlier point, like keep the lights on, ship product by Friday, and deliver for value for the customer. So that's part of it. The other part of the transformation is making sure that that change is permanent. I have a client that I'm working with recently that the focus is on getting out of back order. And that's that's great. But once you're out of back order, like you still have to deliver, right? I mean, so it's like, where's the evergreen goal of stabilizing production, stabilizing daily bill attainment for the long term? Like that's more of the transformation, is like, do we look like a different company? Do we operate like a different organization? Do we have different cultural beliefs, values, and actions on the far end of whatever that objective was? So then if I tie into your first part of the question, I'm like, well, what is culture? I mean, culture, if you look it up in a dictionary, right? It's the group of learned behaviors that are either promoted or tolerated, right? So over time, we, as a cultural group or a company entity, like we promote, we reward, reinforce, train consciously certain behaviors and activities. Subconsciously, we also tolerate some, so that becomes part of the culture, good or bad. So the culture is just like, well, how do we work every day, whether it's written down or not written down? And the question is the culture that you have going to enable long-term transformation, stabilize that transformation in the long term? And I think it does. I think it does require some sort of pivot. If you say we want something different in the long term, we could in a short term achieve results, but if your culture hasn't changed, you're going to slide back down that hill.
Yeah, I guess what's so interesting about the question of, and you'll hear about, oh, X% of lean transformations fail or whatever. I'm kind of like I'm always, how do you measure that? Do you know how many people in the whole wide world of, you know what I mean? So it's a really difficult statement to even say. I mean, I think there's truth to it. My hypothesis is that most people probably do struggle with it and they quit, and that's failure, right? But gosh, it's like Toyota, they're still being transformed. You know what I'm saying? And ain't nobody better than them at it, right? And you can
look at leading organizations, right? So Toyota would say they're still like TPSing TPS. Danaher would say they're still DBSing DBS. So that's kind of the challenging thing, is the transformation isn't an arrival, right? It's a change in the way that we think and that we believe. And so how do you say we've gotten there? Like when the best in the world say we haven't gotten there. Yeah. Can I just step back as well? Because that quote, that figure is often misquoted, where it says like 2/3, whatever you pick the number, 2/3 of transformations or change initiatives fail. We put failure on this dichotomous scale of like, I succeeded or I failed. If you actually look back to the research that's in, the full quote is like, failed to achieve the desired outcomes. So that could have been, we wanted to get to, a 95% quality rate and we got to 92, and you're like, we failed. But that study, when quoted out of context, just says it's either a flaming dumpster fire or it's a long-term success. And that's kind of dangerous to just say, well, 2/3 are going to fail.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like defeating before you even try. It's kind of like, you're never going to lose weight. Don't even try. Keep eating bad.
Well, and even the failure. I've gotten the good fortune to have a couple of conversations with folks in the industry. One of them, Mark Graban, and his new book, My Favorite Mistake. And when we catalog it as a failure, right, that can feel pretty defeating versus a mistake or failing forward, whatever you want to call it. But also this perception of, lean transformations fail or change initiatives fail is saying, well, what can we learn from that so we do better next time, get closer to the goal?
Yeah, no, I like it. Well, let's talk a little bit about leadership and the role that leaders play in this ongoing transformation. Let's just call it that. Sometimes we'll see, we've all experienced it probably in our careers, being micromanaged, didn't have any autonomy. Maybe there was just sort of like top down mandates given, you're going to do this, or leave, that sort of thing. like what's a leader to do? What kind of behaviors should they be demonstrating to ensure this stable, long-term transformation?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll start with two like tangible examples I can say you shouldn't do, right? So maybe we start there, kind of back to the mistakes, not the failures, but the mistakes I've seen and how that can inform the future. So it's not uncommon that an organization might start their shop floor transformation with something like 5S. Well, that's good, right? I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do. I have a personal thing about 5S shop wide, but what problem is it solving? But maybe that's a future episode. If we're going to do that, is like, does everyone understand why? And back to what we started in the beginning, transformation, like, what is that going to help us do better? So we've cleaned up the floor. We've put tape on the floor. You've lowered my amount of inventory at my workstation. How does that help me do my job better? And so just by mandating that, like we 5S, we put floor tape, you put up your audit sheet or whatever, I don't know that we're getting the buy-in or the change. It's just like, you're just asking me to do something else at the end of the shift, is clean up instead of just go home when I used to. Another example I can point to that is this was a TPM example, and it was a 5S initiative, and the continuous improvement team, I'm using air quotes, not sure if this is on video or not, right, came in and they did it over the weekend when some of the machine operators weren't there. So they come back on Monday and it's like, where are my tools? So like in that case, it was
a
done.
Fun morning.
It was done to them, right? Yeah. So this top-down micromanage or mandate of like, we're going to clean up the floor whether you like it or not, because I've heard that results in better performance. So those are the type of things that we don't want to do. These blanket, organization-wide, at least my recommendations, not these blanket organization-wide, just like apply a tool because we think it's going to improve, but we haven't defined what improvement means. Let me say a little bit of some examples I've seen where it's working really well. So I have a contact that's in Danaher, and I just asked him, like, so how do you onboard new leaders? And they have like a 3-month program that they go through where that leader is going around and participating in and helping facilitate Kaizen events. So if you just think about that mindset, they're understanding the DBS approach to improving processes in business, and they're learning that before they even take on their leadership role. So that's pretty incredible. That's a pretty substantial investment. And again, to any of your listeners, I'm not saying you have to go do that. I just want you to think differently about what is the leader's role in supporting lean principles. If it's just to review the 5S audit spider web chart at the end of the month, or is it to actually get involved and understand how making change? I have another client I was working with recently, and getting the leaders out of the corporate center and into the job sites was a challenge. And we're really showing them it's starting to pick up steam. And so they're saying, take them by the elbow, lock arms with them, take them by the elbow, get out there, ask questions instead of being certain. Kind of ties back to our prediction and uncertainty. Ask questions about what's really happening. You can't manage off a spreadsheet and say, I know what's happening at the job site. Encourage and coach. So point them back to standard. Try experimenting, changing something small and seeing if we get different results. Like that type of leadership commitment is saying, I believe in the principles of lean, not just, this tool-based approach.
Yeah. What do you think we, as just an overall lean movement, need to be thinking about in order to see more lean, long-term successful lean ongoing transformations?
I think we need to be aware that it's going to take time. So how long did it take Toyota to develop what is the Toyota production system? And we said earlier, like, it's still improving, but you could look at the history of like Ono's first experiments in the maintenance shop to where they had, maybe organization wide, and you're talking about 20 to 30 years. I think it's about 27 years.
It was after the wars, it's like right after the wars when they
until the 70s, right? Where they would say that this is something that we can now replicate.
Right.
Danaher went with like Shinga Jitsu trainers and things like that, but they took about 17 years from when they initially started to when now we have an enterprise-wide solution for that. So for organizations that are like, show me the roadmap of their 6-month transformation, I'm like, I mean, we're really expecting cultural change, leadership behavior change, and that happens slowly. There's been a lot of, and I don't know I don't know if it's the algorithms online. It's kind of like the red car effect or whatever. Like you want to buy a red car, you start seeing red cars everywhere. So I start thinking about this, training and coaching, and now I'm seeing all these posts about the importance of senseis and coaches. Coach deployment is my experience now doing this for several years required to build that knowledge and that capability and that accountability. I think we've relied too much on classroom training, right? Where we can say, I'm going to tell 20 people what to do, and then they're going to go be successful with that. So
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean? So kind of back to your question, what does that mean? It takes longer because we're really investing in developing individual people, and individual people over time build that culture, right? That learned set of behaviors that's tolerated and promoted.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to do that and cultivate that slowly over time. We can't just be like, okay, now that was the pivot point that we're turning the Titanic on a dime and we have a new culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Earlier, we were talking about the dangers of sort of like top down management and mandating things and all that. So, spinning it a different way, then, if we just turn our attention to our frontline team members, as it relates to really to lean, what can we be doing to help them feel like they're part of it, like they are the initial owners of this transformation, instead of like they're just being compliant? Like what can we be doing? What strategies?
Yeah. And so I want to be clear when I say there's nothing top down, I just mean the mandate for specific tools, specific activities. I think
Yeah.
we definitely need a top down commitment to say, this is what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So
Are we
whether
doing
that's
this? Yeah. Yeah.
a financial goal, a quality goal, a
Yeah.
delivery goal that we're going after, and say, this is where we need to get. As you get lower in the organization, right, it's important that the director, manager, supervisor, frontline level to say how we are going to transform in that way. And what does that take? Well, that takes things like Kaizen events, or continuous improvement and experimentation. It takes coaching. It takes leaders being on the Gemba, asking questions, showing support for trying and failing, right? Making mistakes, like supporting that try and try again. And this leader standard work of staying close and connected to the work. Another thing that's very important in any lean transformation is this daily management system. So do we understand on a daily, like, how am I going to be successful on a daily basis? And if I am experimenting, how do I iterate? So how do we get that ownership, that autonomy, that authority? How do we get the authority for making process improvements like closer to where the information actually lives, to where the work is actually done? And we do that by supporting the workforce, of not saying, okay, I'm going to come in and tell you what we're going to do. And I'm guilty of this in my early career. I studied and first career experience as an industrial engineer, and I was convinced I could just calculate my way to the best solution, and everyone's going to buy in because the math says it works. And I've run improvement events where then the team is telling me, I don't think it's going to work. Math says it's going to work, ends up not working. Well, is that really supporting the line and making that improvement? Again, I could, back to our quote about predictions, I could be very certain this is going to work. But if the rest of the team isn't coming with me, I'm just one person who's crossed that threshold of knowledge, and they need to come with me. So how do we provide an environment where I can give you the goal to go after, but I have to give you enough breathing room to experiment with the tools yourself and learn what works, and then build some buy-in and some cultural change on my own. Hopefully that made sense. I rambled a little there.
No, that was good. One of my favorite aspects of TWI, training within industries, is just the whole idea of sort of put the learner at ease, in the beginning. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Just from a human behavioral perspective, you're going out there, you're going to work with someone. They don't really know who you are. They're kind of nervous. Like, what is this all about? Like, what do we do to put folks at ease?
Oof. Well, so I don't know what a lot of organizations do to accomplish that. I think the answer is not much in some of the organizations that I've been in. But yeah, I mean, the first thing is just the environment, right? You get on a shop floor, and it's depending upon the industry, right? Maybe it's noisy, maybe the lighting's different, right? Maybe there's displays, visual displays or whiteboards that you don't really understand. Like, having a little bit of onboarding time and some grace to say, like, if we're making an investment in this person, it's really important that they understand what we do here and how we make decisions. If we value, because we say this in a lot of cultural things, like we value inclusion and we value innovation, and that's great. That new team member can't really contribute if they have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
getting them at ease, first of all, with the physical environment, I think can't be understated, but also taking time to explain the way we measure things, the way we make decisions, how I'm going to be measuring your performance, how as a team we measure our performance, I think is really important to take our time with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, we're recording this here in October, but won't be released for a little while. But we're doing a live greenbelt training here in our facility, and I just kind of walked in yesterday. I'm not teaching the class, but I walked in and John Knotts is teaching a class, and they were right in the middle. It's like a green belt fast track class. And they're right in the middle of sort of like this hypotheses testings and P values. And everybody's like, oh, and John said, Ron, come up here and explain this. And I remember just looking at the students, and I could just see that they just had this sort of just like scared look on their face. Like, what in the heck have we gotten ourselves into, you know? And I remember what I said, and I believe it, is like, guys, this is not a big deal. We're going to get this. And then I just sort of paused and just looked at everybody until they like acknowledged, okay, you know, and just almost, because sometimes I feel like we go into these things with this mindset of like, this is really hard and get ready. You're going to really struggle. So pay attention, you know, whereas we get to say, hey, we're going to make it. We're going to do it, you know, and you don't have to go into it with this, I don't know, like this negative mindset, right? Like more like have that, what they call the growth mindset, right? Like don't have a scarcity mindset, have a growth mindset. I feel like that's a big part also to help folks just almost take a deep breath, and it's going to be okay because I'm with you and we're going to do it together.
But I think it's so important what you just demonstrated there as a leader behavior. I mean, you're the leader in that environment. You are leading them through the learning experience, and you're creating space for them to feel at ease, right? To have some psychological safety.
Yeah.
You look at, you know, again, I know we oftentimes, and we go back to like these big organizations that have lifelong transformations like Toyota, but in a Toyota, I was meeting with some folks that, you know, grew up in that organization and got trained on the production line. Like, you pull the andon cord and stop the line, like they maybe not celebrate like confetti and stuff, but they thank you for pointing out the problem.
Right.
Oh, we've never had that problem before.
Right.
Thank you for pointing out so we can make our process better. Right. The juxtaposition, and, you know, I haven't been in a U.S. Automotive in some time, but compared to like, you don't stop the line for anything, right? It's just a very different mindset. When you're doing that and saying, we're going to figure it out, even if we make a mistake, like, I'm here with you to help figure out why we made the mistake and what we're going to do better. But you don't feel that in a lot of industries. You don't feel that in a lot of organizations. And I think it all goes back to culture of what is my expectation on day one. So in this case, if you're a continuous improvement professional, and I expect that your statistical analysis and your p-value are perfect, right? Your prediction about the future was perfect. Like, and then I mess up. Oh man, I'm in that 70% of change initiatives that fail. Like, I fail or I succeed.
Yeah.
And that culture is just not conducive for long-term development of people, long-term behavior change.
Yeah. And what's interesting about, and circling back to the whole idea of predictions and thresholds of knowledge and all that. It's like yesterday when I walked in there, like, I've taught this stuff for many, many years, and I could do it with my eyes closed in all humility. Right. And so like, I had no doubt that I was going to get them across the finish line. And so that's one way that's easier. I could speak with that confidence, but in those situations to where I'm at the threshold of knowledge along with the learner, and I don't know like what we got to do to make it work, but we could still have that confidence. And the whole idea of we are going to experiment our way forward one step at a time. And I'm confident if we don't quit, we're going to get there. So I feel like even if you don't know like what you're talking about in a way, right? Or what the answer is, so to speak, you can still have that confidence with that learner to put them at ease and again, lock arms and let's go. Let's take a step. What do you think?
Yeah. So, I mean, the one thing is there are situations where the learner knows what to do, and that's great. They're going to take the step forward. There are situations where the learner doesn't know what to do, but the coach or teacher or sensei knows what to do, and you have to give them enough enough space, right? Enough wiggle room to struggle, because that's learning comes on the other side of that. What you're talking about, this interesting case where I'm the coach and I don't necessarily know the right thing to do. And the learner doesn't know the right thing to do. And I totally agree. This trust the process, that quote just came up from a client I'm working with, where they had said, I don't really understand how this is going to get to where we're going to go, but I'm going to trust the process.
Yeah.
And the thing is, and I echo back to him, is like, I don't know the specific process changes that we're going to take. I mean, we're in week 1 of an engagement. I don't know specifically what is going to get you to close the goal or close the gap on the goal. But I do know if we follow this process together, we're going to learn and we'll be smarter 2 weeks from now. And it is uncertain, so go all the way back to the beginning of our conversation in that quote, humankind, like, I want to know, I need to know that you know how to get there as my coach or your sensei. It's like, but it's principles, right? And this is back to where I say it's not, not a mandate. Like, I don't want to focus on use the tool, use the tool, use the tool. It's the principles. If we follow the principles and we follow the process, I can have confidence, I can put you at ease as the learner and saying, I don't know, but I don't have to be frantic and be like, I don't know. We gotta work harder. It's okay. We'll step through that threshold of knowledge together. And a couple of days from now, a couple of weeks from now, we'll have a lot better idea of where we need to be.
So good. So good, man. This has been a fun conversation. I do
want to say it sounds easy when we say it. And this is what I tell a lot of people about lean, including this is right. It's simple. It's not easy.
Yeah. No, for sure. Why don't you maybe wrap things up, Chad, with like any final words of wisdom? You got a lot of experience. You've seen a lot of things. What are some final words of maybe encouragement even that you can give to folks who are on this journey?
Well, I think we use that word transformation. We started at the beginning, and that's a big word, transformation, a big change. But we have to start somewhere, right? Throwing out more quotes here, right? But the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. There's also like one of my favorite Chinese proverbs, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. But not saying like don't set your litmus test to this pass fail. It's about learning. And that is uncomfortable, right? Because the future is uncertain. The change I'm going to make in my process, like I can't be 100% certain about the performance increase, the quality improvement, the lead time reduction I'm going to get, because I've never done it that way. So like, take that pressure off of yourself, take a first small step, but also give yourself the grace to learn through that process and say, I'm going to be better at this tomorrow. And I only really need to be one step in front of whoever I'm coaching.
So peeling back the curtain a little on my personal life with my family, my wife and I recently kind of wrote up this, we called it Pereira family code. I got teenagers, I got young adults, I got teenagers, I got little ones. And so we, listed out a bunch of things that our family's all about, like, say you're sorry and that sort of thing. But the last one, I'm going to read it. I have it on my notepad or my note file here. The last one, and I think it perfectly aligns with what you just said, is also to be patient. And then it says, be patient with others and yourself. Growth takes time and everyone is on their own journey. We're always in such a rush with ourselves and others that, that impatience can just eat away at us. And then that leads into so many other vices that can just wreck your life, really. What do you think?
I mean, I totally agree. And, we can be in a rush, to where we started, like, we got to get delivery by Friday. And you do. Like, sometimes you need to get things out the door. You need to just finish something. But, patience with others. And also, when you come into a situation, you don't know that they have their context or they know what assumptions you are making. I'm super guilty of this. So kind of back to the patience thing. Like, I'll fly into conversation. I'm like spitting off things at my kids or my wife. And they're just like, I've been thinking about it in the other room for 2 hours, right? I'm just like, here's the plan of attack. And they're like, I don't know what we're talking about. So having that patience, I think, is super important. Especially in this context that we're talking about culture change, is like, you can't change the culture let me see if I'm phrasing that right? Everyone needs to change the culture. So like you can't get to culture change faster just by you learning. And this kind of comes back to like, it's coaching, it's investing, it's repetitive action over time. And that's probably not a really sexy answer that executives want to hear of like, it's going to take time.
Right.
But you can only go as fast as you can move your organization.
Good stuff. Hey, Chad, if folks wanted to connect with you, what's the best way?
I think the best way is to find me on LinkedIn. I assume you'll link that out in the show notes down below. You could also find a copy of my book on Amazon or at my website, bareithergroup.com. You can download chapter 1 for free to see if you even like it.
What's the name of the book?
The name of the book is Improve Less. It's the focus and align framework for sustainable continuous improvement. And so you can find that on Amazon or, like I said, get a chapter from my website for free. And those are probably the easiest ways to get in touch with me.
Okay. And then if you haven't listened to episode 498, where we actually talk about the book, now that you're done with this episode, go ahead. I'll have Jessica link it up in the show notes as well. Just hit the button and you can go back and listen to 498 as well. So, hey, man, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on. And I think we got the next topic. There's something about 5S and, you know, or as Mark Graban would say, lean as misguidedly executed, lame, whatever, you know. So like we can get into all that kind of stuff. Maybe that'd be a fun one.
I think it's great. Oh, yeah. And if you're already thinking about another one, tell Adam Lawrence I'm coming for him. So he's
okay.
Five or six. I gotta catch him. So.
Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. All right, man. Appreciate you, Chad.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening. Whether you've been on the continuous improvement journey for many years, or perhaps you're just getting started, Gemba Academy is here to support you. And while we're best known for our more than 1,500 Lean and Six Sigma teaching and virtual tour videos, we also have a team of experienced Lean and Six Sigma practitioners available for one-on-one coaching, as well as a variety of Lean and Six Sigma certification options. To learn more and to schedule a demo, head on over to gembaacademy.com.